Hey folks, Chris Vandeviver here from WhyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro 10. And today I want to share some best practices for organizing your Logic sessions. Now, this can be a bit of a boring topic, but organization, it is key to your success, whether it's recording, mixing, producing, or mastering. I mean, just read any in-depth analysis of a hit single that was produced by A-level producer or A-level mix engineer, and the first thing they always talk about is how they organize their sessions. I mean, just think about it. Imagine you're walking into your house and the place is a mess. The dog, he's torn something up as soon as you walk in. The dishes are piling up in the kitchen. Your bedroom is just clothes everywhere. The bed's not even made. It's going to be hard to feel at home and comfortable in this environment. And it's the same thing for your Logic projects. I mean, if you have 100 tracks that are all the same color, with the same icon, name essentially the same, audio 1, audio 2, etc. Project name is just untitled. It's going to be hard to figure out where you are when you're not listening to the song. Which part are you on? Which track are you looking at? Hell, I mean, try to find this project 2 years from now in a pile of folders that all say Untitled 1 or Riff 2 or Aha 3. Like, it's going to be impossible. So I want to share my particular strategy for organization. So first things first, I open a new session of Logic, and the first thing I do is save. Just give everything a home on the front end. Don't wait to start piling stuff on and then think about saving. And I have a very particular naming scheme for my sessions, as you can see here. I start with the year, followed by the date, the artist name, and then depending on the release, I'll use the song title if it's a single, EP if it's like 3 to 5 songs for extended play, and LP for anything longer than 5 songs. I don't like to have 10 different projects for 10 song records. I want all the tracks in the same session. Just find it way easier. So I start with the year, and I find the year is the best way to go because if you have August 1st, 2017 and then August 1st, 2018, those are going to get batched together. As I prefer all 2017 in the same bracket, followed by 2018 stuff. So period, and then the month, followed by the day. Underscore, I find are really helpful for kind of spacing things out and making these project names more legible. So we'll go with KW for the artist name, and then the song title, because it's not going to be a release of any sort that's bigger, it's just a single. And then I organize my projects as folders, though packages, which is the default for a lot of people, though they're very pretty to look at, I much prefer folders so I can dig into more of the nuance of a project if I need to, like the audio files or the bounces. Whereas a package, you don't really have much access. You can dig into them using Control-Click, but I don't know, it's just an extra step. And then I save just about everything. I make sure that Logic copies most of the files over to this project, such as audio files, EXS instruments, movie files. Because say I pull an audio file from somewhere in my computer or an external hard drive, right? And it's not being copied to this project. That's assuming that that file will never be deleted or moved from where it is. And Logic is going to refer to wherever it is every time I open this project. And let's be honest, what is the likelihood that audio file is not going to get moved or deleted? So instead, I just make sure it's copied here, so everything is in the same place. So I don't have to rely on things not changing later. So I save. Okay, now I'm gonna bring in a bunch of audio files. Use Command A to select them all. I'm gonna drag them right into the session here. I don't know why it does that, but here we go. So we're gonna create new tracks, might take a second. All right, and as you can see, Logic has already color-coded everything, and this is a recent update. I'm so thankful for this, because before, you know, everything would just be blue. It'd be the classic blue. That is such a pain. Instead, you go to Preferences, and you go to Display. There's a heading called Tracks, and for Appearance, there's now this auto progress for colors. Depending on where you are in terms of Logic, what update you're on, you have auto progress 24, so it just works with 24 different colors, and 96, which works with the whole color palette. I love this. And I don't even bother manually changing colors anymore. It just does it automatically. I'm good to go. So from here, I then work on names and icons and grouping instruments together. I want all the drum tracks together. I want all the bass, all the guitars. I want these groups of tracks together because it's much easier to look at the session and go, okay, I know all the drums are at the top, followed by the bass, the guitars. It's easier to navigate a session like that, as opposed to having one drum track up here and the snare track down here, etc. So I know we got 2 drum sets here and a kick. So I'm going to put those here and delete this audio file. So the drum tracks are together, followed by the bass. We have some Rhodes tracks. Okay, I think we have some more Rhodes. Oh, I see that there's a snare down there. So I'll bring the snare up, put it under the kick, and then we've got claps. So we know we got some percussion. I always go drums, percussion, bass, guitars, synths, main vocals, backing vocals. That's my particular scheme. So I'll organize the session as such, and then I start to go through and rename tracks. And I have a very specific tactic for this. I try to have each track name not exceed 3 letters, which can be difficult. You know, sometimes I exceed that, but I try to stick with 3 letters. And that might sound hard, but it's not that hard. In this case, we know it's a kick, so I go KCK for kick, followed by SNR for snare. This appears to be the whole kit, so kit 1, followed by kit 2. I know these are claps, so clap, bass. Oh, I went with 4 letters, whatever. So on and so forth. This is much easier to look at as opposed to these long names. I mean, you can see here that Logic is trying to condense it so we can fit it all. Go into the mixer, and I mean, that's essentially means nothing to me because it's been truncated so much. I don't know what it is. But here I know that it's bass, clap, snare, kick, way easier. And then I'll start to add icons. Icons are much easier to identify than words. I mean, a word you have to read. An icon, you immediately know what it looks like. I don't bother using custom icons. I just use the ones in Logic. I think they look fine. They're great. So I know that's a kick. I know that's a snare. And you can see that within the mixer as well. Way better. So once I've set names, colors, and icons for all my tracks, I then start to group tracks with track stacks. Track stacks are fantastic ways of organizing your sessions. Using Shift-Command-D, I always pick summing stacks because I can add plugins to the whole stack, where a folder stack is more like a VCA fader. I mean, you get a folder and you get a fader that controls the volume of all the tracks, but I want to be able to process my whole group if I need to. So I'll group all the drums together and name them drums using DRM and give it an icon as such. Then I'll go to, let's just say, the Rhodes and give this a group. And I'll call this, like Rhode, and make sure to pick a key that looks like an organ, so on and so forth. And it's fantastic because sometimes you want to process a group of instruments together. For example, the drums, the guitars, the vocals. So with the drum stack here, I can collapse it, and I can collapse these folders to make it easier to navigate around my session. And I can also add EQ or compression to the entire group of instruments. And that is fantastic. So, I mean, let's just go through. This is a percussion track. We know that. This is bass. And it turns out that I saw that there's a bass down here, and you can easily drag it into the track stack, so on and so forth. And using Option click, you can collapse multiple track stacks at a time, which is amazing. Now, the next thing I want to do is clear out any dead space from any tracks. Now, sometimes you record a drummer and they're not playing for a period of time, or a guitarist, but they're making noise, they're moving around. That stuff can be distracting, and the more you mix, the more that stuff becomes obvious. So I like to cut out dead space. But say, for instance, that this is a track where, there's dead space, but nobody's playing anything, nobody's moving. It's like a software instrument. It's still good to just remove it so you know where you are in the session. It gets easier to identify where you are in a session based on where parts are actually being played. So I'll go through and remove dead space, and I'll make sure to add fades to those audio files. Go to the inspector, click on more for the region, and then I'll set a 5 millisecond fade in and fade out, just so things are clean and there's no pops or clicks if there's some audio that gets cut abruptly. And then the last thing I will do is I will set markers for each section of the song. Markers reside in the global track lanes here. You can see markers right here. And what's fantastic about markers is you can set like the intro, verse, chorus, and you can navigate between those. Let's assume that this is the chorus. I'll set the cycle range at the top here, and now I'm going to drag it down to the marker area. And I'm going to call this chorus. So now I know where the chorus is, and you can even set the color. Use Option C, and you can select a color in the color palette. Just make sure that the marker is selected. And let's say that this is the verse. So let's drag it down to the marker section, call it verse. Option C, give it a color. So now when I collapse the global track lanes here, I know exactly what I'm looking at. You see, we haven't gone through all the tracks, but now this session is so much easier to identify. It's easy to know based on color, icon, name, what I'm looking at. Marker tells me where I am. Just removing dead space from your tracks, that helps in identifying where you are in the session. And having everything saved in the same spot just saves you so much grief later in case things change. So I hope that was helpful to you. If it was, as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel, whylogicprorules.com. Subscribe on the website, whylogicprorules.com. I mean, I can't say it enough. I'm here every week to post, new videos, new emails to help you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro 10. Thanks so much.